So we're live now. Ally, are you all set?
We are live, Madam Chair. Thank you.
And you are comfortable with where we are right now?
Yes. Yes, we are live.
Good morning.
Hi, Representative Walker.
How are you?
Morning.
Good morning. There are too many things going on today.
Yeah, I know. It's like that every day now. So it's 10 o'clock. We're going to get started. Good morning, everybody.
We haven't started recording yet, did we?
Here we are. She says, well, Ally said we're all set.
Oh, good. Okay, now we're recording. Okay, good.
Yeah. Yep. Ally already said we were all set, so.
Okay.
So good morning, everybody. Pleasure to see you on this Friday. Look forward to hearing some from the Department of Motor Vehicle and the Department of Transportation. I will check with my chairs, but before I do, remember we're on a 2-question limit on the first time around. And we'll be talking with the Department of Motor Vehicle and the Department of Transportation. Representative Walker, do you have anything that you would like to share?
Good morning, everybody. It's going to be a long Friday, so get comfortable.
Representative France.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking forward to the conversation about the budget and move forward. Thank you.
Senator Minor, are you on? Representative Rosario?
I saw him a minute ago.
He told me that he was driving, so he would be 10 or 15 minutes. And Senator Lopes?
Good morning, everybody.
All righty, so we're just going to dive right into it. I see that Ally is the commissioner on from the Department of Motor Vehicle?
Yes, I am.
Oh, there you are. I see you're on a whole table. Oh my goodness.
Good morning,
Yep.
Senator Austin.
We're masked up and we've joined the modern world, and now we have a room where we can actually have Zoom calls with the staff able to participate.
I love it. That's very nice. I'm glad to see that. Commissioner, we're doing something different this year. We're going to dive right into questions. So I'm wondering if you could first introduce your team.
Okay, so I'm here with Deputy Commissioner Guerrera, Attorney Michelle Gibbons, Acting Director of Fiscal Daryl Grant. I'm sure Chief Operating Officer Gail Billett is on. She's not necessarily in the room. Lieutenant Chris Smith from CVSD, and as you know, Millie, our lady liaison, you're back there. It's hard with the mask, so the team is all here, and we have a staff member from IT just in case on our side we had some challenges.
Oh, okay.
So I was kind of happy that we had the opportunity to just dive right into the questions, so we're ready to go.
That's great. So, Commissioner, I'm going to ask a couple of questions vis-a-vis staffing. I see that in FY22 and FY23, you have 598, really only a 5-person drop. Are all your positions filled positions?
The positions, no, they're not filled, but I will let COO Gail Billett, is she on the line, or Daryl?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, so can you talk about the positions and what percentage are filled?
Yes, so we're missing about 87 people. 39 of them are in branch operations. We're down about 20 in contact center. Chief Smith and I both are missing quite a few agents who do driver's tests and take care of the learner's permits. And the impact to the state right now is probably we could service about 350,000 more citizens if we had our full complement of staffing. So even with the new online services that we have, the shortage in staffing that we have right now has a direct impact on the citizens of Connecticut.
Thank you for that. And do you have any interviews out for any of these people? Has the Office of Policy Management authorized you to hire some of these 80 people?
Yes, they have. They've authorized all of them. And they officially authorized, I think, towards the end of December after, there was a freeze. And so we've been actively in recruitment. Our HR is actively in recruitment.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that. And how many, have you gotten any dollars out of any of the federal revenue sources relative to COVID or any other federal dollars that help run your organization?
Yes, roughly $8 million. And the bulk of it went into digital enablement, around 3.1 million or 3.2 million, roughly 39%. The next area where we spent the money, the 8 million, was in cleaning, roughly 2 million, 1.9, 24%. We also received monies to hire guards, and we also employed or deployed an appointment system, about 2% of that funding, and then the remaining 6.4% we spent on sneeze guards, laptops, configuring workspaces, and just general buying the hand sanitizers and those things.
Thank you very much for that. Sticking to the two question per person. I'll go to Representative Walker.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioner.
I'm sorry, before I go to the next one, we did get 50,000 from FEMA.
Oh, great.
March 15th to April 15th, so I apologize for that.
And if you could send that along to us in writing, so on all of the dollars that you've gotten, so that we can go over that in the working group.
Yep, we'll do.
Representative Walker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Commissioner. Good to see you. And your whole staff and everybody. And I have to say, give a shout out to Deputy Commissioner Guerrero. It was automatic. I was going there, Tony. So sorry about that. But it's good to see all of you. And I'm glad you got your office set up. That's good. My first question is the cannabis positions that are in your budget.
Yep.
The 7 positions for cannabis, for recreational marijuana.
Yep.
Okay. Can you tell me what are those positions for? And is 7 the operative number, or is it more, or is it less?
So for right now, it's 2 hearing officers, 2 staff attorneys, 1 analyst, and 2 processing techs. I'll turn it over to Michelle, given the legal person, for her to opine on whether or not that's enough.
For the moment, we believe that it's correct, that's sufficient.
I'm sorry, could you speak a little?
For the moment, we do believe that is sufficient, correct.
Okay, the 2 staff attorneys, the 2 analysts, and what were the rest?
Processing techs, 2.
Yeah, Representative Walker, what it is, it's 2 hearing officers, 2 staff attorneys, 1 analyst, and 2 processing techs.
Okay, all right. And right now, because we don't know what the bill's going to look like, it's adequate. Okay.
Yeah, if I could just add, Representative, I think that's a very good point. Until we know exactly what the bill entails and what the language is going to come out of the General Assembly, we're going based upon what we're seeing right now. But obviously, all of that can change in the next coming 3 or 4 months during the session.
Okay. I'm going to go back to your positions that are unfilled. You said you have 87 unfilled positions, and it seems like you said 39 branch ops and 20 contact centers and things. So sounds like the offices themselves, even though you've done a great job of changing your hours and everything, there's still not enough people in those offices to serve the community, so that going to DMV is a joy as opposed to what many of us have thought about in the past. So can you explain, help us go a little further into it? The reason why you are not able to fulfill those jobs is because of salaries, or because, I mean, I know that we have a lot of people that are unemployed right now looking for jobs. So I'm trying to understand, what is the problem with filling those positions?
Interestingly enough, we do get the people, they come and interview, we make job offers, and they decline. I was in conversation with HR because I was surprised. I think it's close to like 25 to 30% of the people are not accepting the positions. And so you've got that where you're losing people, you're trying to hire. The process is not, quick. So within maybe the 6 weeks of posting, bringing them in, some people actually find jobs, because I asked the same question, like, why is the yield rate as low as it is? And it's really the dynamics of people being able to find jobs quicker than we can go through the process, interview, make offers, do background checks, and then get all of that worked out. They have other jobs.
Can you explain, why is it taking 6 weeks for you to get, I mean, not for nothing, but I'm not doing more than one question. I'm still sticking on the staff. So just,
That's fine.
No, you're adding in. You are adding in. You are going beyond.
all right. But I will say though, is it because of the fact that your HR has been shifted into DAS that caused, but has it always been 6 weeks for you to process someone in
So think about it. So you have to go through the state processing where you check if someone's on the list, is applicable, then you get that applicant list and you list it. Then people apply, it goes through to sort out who meets then we get sent over internally. We put together the questions, we interview, get back to HR, they then make offers. Okay. And then if someone accepts, then they have to now do the background. That is the average. I mean, some are sooner, but that's the average, and some take longer.
Okay, I'm good. I'm getting glared at, so I will stop. But I'm hoping that one of my colleagues is going to pick up the question. So thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize.
Okay.
Of course, it could be the fact that we don't have any, the benefits are really minimal now. Representative France.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, and your team for joining us today. The first question, a lot of your reviewing your testimony is dealing with modernization of services and providing better access for the citizens to perform some of the services online, et cetera. One of the things that from when I first came in legislature 6 years ago, there was a process of DMV transitioning from a main server to a server-based system, from a mainframe system that had spent about 8 years in transition, but we didn't fully transition. We were running both a hybrid, if you will, of some server-based and some mainframe. Has there been any discussion or movement to continue and finish to actually complete the process of transition to server-based fully, since it reduces the requirement and the challenge of maintaining the hardware side of the system, and where are we on that?
So that's a cornerstone of the modernization program. However, the mainframe is COBOL, which is over 60 years old. And AMBA, that's the agency that supports administrators and DMVs across the nation, decided that we really needed to implement the ability to support and report on drivers at the state-to-state level. So we were faced with now spending money to implement this new capability. And the decision we made is we're going to actually look to replace the mainframe. And it's part of the modernization. we need to make some decisions in terms of, do we replace and integrate, or do we individually replace? Plans have started. We have a project team that's now analyzing the approach, but it's part of the modernization program to upgrade both the licensing and the registration business systems for the DMV.
Thank you for that. And if you could bring to the work session kind of what that proposal is, like the 3-year plan or whatever it looks like on making that transition fully, because in the private sector, when you're moving away from mainframes, the biggest reason is because it is the simplicity and ease of maintaining the system. And I can imagine there's a challenge in IT of trying to maintain the older mainframe system as well as the server-based there. So if you could bring right up with that plan of, looking out 3 to 5 years of whatever that looks like, I appreciate that. I guess the second piece of the modernization is dealing with kind of 2 facets. One is moving more opportunity to online renewals of services and driver's license, et cetera, and also the appointment-based system. And I wonder if you could report on kind of where you're looking to transition additional opportunities for the citizens to interact online to renew driver's license and other services, and then secondarily, those that cannot. How is the appointment system working, and how does that improve the service to the people?
I'll start with the appointment system. It's working very, very well. People are quite surprised when they come to the DMV, and within 15 to 20 minutes, they come in. We know that they're coming in. We validate that they have the information that they need to be successful, and then off they go. I'll just have the deputies share some of the comments, because he gets a lot of the feedback from them. And then I'll come back to the transactions.
Representative France, I mean, obviously, as we all know, right, DMV is probably one of the last places people want to come here, because they have to take a day off from work, they have to rearrange their schedule. But I will say this, since COVID with the appointment system, how nice is it for individuals, right, to make an appointment on a Tuesday, say you're going to be, your appointment's at 10:30, you show up at 10:20, you get in at 10:30, and your appointment's over at 10:45, and you walk out of the DMV, Representative, shaking your head saying, did I really go through this? All right, that is the comments that we have been getting throughout the state of Connecticut right now.
Okay. And so getting back to the online portion of the modernization. So as you know, starting towards the latter part of December last year, we first rolled out the driver's license, non-driver ID. And the way that we approached it was to really start with friends and family. We have subsequently sent out invitations and really we focused on the drivers who were impacted by the delays when COVID hit. And so they were able to come in and remove their credentials. Now we have rolled out duplicates for both the driver's license and the non-driver's license. We have rolled out a change of address tied to those credentials, because we found that a lot of people were not changing their address because it was mainly a call-in manual, and it took a while. So that's been rolled out. In fact, it was rolled out last week. And then people can also now go out and request online their driver history. So those are the 4 services that we've rolled out. And all in all, it's going very, very well. We've supported, let me look at the number, 32,000 people have renewed their licenses online, 1,000 have requested driver's licenses, and 950, close to 1,000, because we're within a month of when we rolled out. So it's going very well. And starting next week, we're going to be sitting down and kicking off the next phase of the planning. And the way that we're looking at it is we're looking at those high volume transactions that drive people coming into the DMV. So duplicate plates or plate cancellations, insurance compliance. And so we have a set of transactions, which I'll be glad to send to you, that are being evaluated as part of phase 2. I don't know if anybody else would like to comment on the team. Gail, I don't know if you have the list of the transactions that we're considering in front of us. If you want to just give them the list of what's.
Yeah, I think I think some of the key ones that are boat renewals, with the season coming up, those are really key, the RVs, the motorcycles. So as spring hits, we currently have other registrations online as well as things like plate cancellations, but we're streamlining that as well so that it's easier to use those tools. So we're both adding new services as well as streamlining existing services so that we have a good size menu for people to use so that they don't have to come in.
Well, very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. And as far as I'm glad to hear that the appointment system is working so well. It is something that I've talked about for the entire time in the legislature. As my experience growing up in California, we used to have lines around the building before they put an appointment system in, and it worked very well out there. And I'm glad that we have that here because while we didn't have lines around the building, we did have long waits, and it's great that we've transitioned there and provide that service to the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Representative France. Now we're going to the chairs of the subcommittee, and we have Senator Lopes. Do you have any questions for the Department of Motor Vehicle? I'll come back to Senator Lopes. Next up would be Representative Rosario. Do you have any questions for the Department of Motor Vehicle?
Can you hear me now?
Thank you, Madam
Oh.
Chair. Oh, I'll defer to the senator. I'll defer to the good
All right.
senator.
Senator Lopes, go ahead. Any
Sorry, I
questions?
had a little muting problem there, but no, I'm all set. Please proceed.
Thank you. Representative Rosario.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, and everybody over at DMV. I appreciate all the work you do, keeping everybody on the road. Real quick, two quick things. One, I want to pick up where Representative Walker left off on the hiring issue, and secondly, on the cannabis, the marketing aspect of it with the impairment. Is that work going to be done in-house, or is that going to be going out to bid? And I'll turn it over to you guys.
I'm not sure.
Representative Rosario, good morning. This is Tony Guerrero. So
Good morning, Tony. Good to see you.
you in regards to the advertising, can you elaborate a little bit on that part, please?
Yeah, I saw on the cannabis aspect how there's going to be, I guess, marketing for impairment, similar to like you do with drunk driving. Is that done in-house, or is that going out to bid? Is there like a marketing firm that you guys hire, or you have staff in-house that handles that?
Right, we have not been, again, I don't think that's our part of it in regards to our legislation. That's part of that in regards to DMV representative, but we can check into that because right now we haven't determined whether it's going to be an outside firm or an inside firm.
I guess I'm not understanding of what you mean by advertising for impairment that we do today. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes, based on the cannabis funds, if the cannabis, any type of cannabis bill goes through, I saw that there is going to be some sort of marketing for, impairment.
Oh, okay,
That's not under DMV, though.
so that's not us. As
That's
I
not
said
us.
earlier, we're the hearing officers, staff attorneys, analysts, and processing techs for the sanctioning portion of the bill. The marketing will be done somewhere else.
Thank you for the clarification, and I do want to pick up where Representative Walker left off with her question.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yes, on the hiring aspect.
I'm not sure what was remaining. I mean, we answered the reason for the delays, which is it's not a new, that 6 weeks is not different from the current to the past. And so I answered that. I wasn't sure what else you wanted to ask.
I'm having some technical difficulties here. Maybe we can move on until I get situated here.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Representative Zawistowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Madam Commissioner, and everybody in your very attractive conference room. When I first heard about the licenses being renewed by mail, I kind of went, thinking that it's a great idea to save money, but I'm concerned maybe a little bit about having people renew by mail. Maybe there might be some issues with fraud, and you know, I just want to make sure that I'm sure you've thought this through really well. My question is, how much are you actually saving by doing this, number one? And I know you're also saving our constituents money as well, but what kind of discussion did you go through to make this decision to go to the renew by mail on the licenses? I'd appreciate hearing that.
So I think the renewal by mail was, in the past, it wasn't one of the primary ways, but then during COVID, when branch operations was closed for 2.5 months, we, in order to support and continue to serve the citizens of Connecticut, we put out front lock boxes for them to drop their information so we could process and give it back to them. Because at the time, we did not have an ability to renew online. So really, it was a stopgap measure to continue operations because branch office was closed, our back offices were still open, and so we relied heavily on the mail to keep the presses going. So I'm not thinking, we're not thinking that that's going to be a way that we're going to depend on. It was just for that period due to COVID.
Okay, so this is actually a temporary measure and not a permanent measure?
I guess somebody can tell me how often, I think there's always, somebody's have to take this on because in terms of the reason why we got so many people was because we were closed.
Right.
And so it's not part of the strategy, but you try to provide people with available channels to be able to get their credentials. And we believe that over time, and I think somewhere we talked about the reduction in mail because in the past, people had to come in for all this work. And so then we created lock boxes during COVID, and we have subsequently moved online for the renewals, and we're collecting both phone numbers and email addresses, and we're asking people what is their preferred method of communication. So really there's an evolving strategy around, and some people could go to our partners to get their licenses. So there are multiple channels, and I don't think mail is in any way central to where we're going, because in the modern world, people want more convenience. They prefer online. And we think that the online channel is really the place where we're placing our bet, that's where people do most of their transactions.
And I think that what you're doing during the pandemic, it's very important to be able to make these accommodations. I wasn't sure what the path forward was on this and whether or not it was a cost saving measure on your part. I actually went to our local AAA for renewal, and that was by appointment, and that really went well as well. I'd just be interested in following this. Maybe we can have a little bit more discussion on this during the working group. I appreciate your answer. Thank you very much.
Like I said, in terms of a strategy, the strategy is to make for the convenience of our citizens, we're making as many channels as possible. And some people, they don't have online, so being able to do it by mail was something that they would do, but I'm not sure it's like the central strategy. We're just providing options.
Yeah.
And in the past, the only option was you're coming into the office and that's that. So.
And that's the whole point, Representative. I think that if I may just add just one piece to that, what the Commissioner said was that during the COVID pandemic, obviously we were shut down for a number of days, and therefore we're trying to make sure that people's credentials were still being issued on a timely basis. Because of the COVID pandemic, it made us really start modernizing with the appointment system, the online renewals. But as the Commissioner stated, right, there are always going to be individuals that don't have computer systems. So we have to make sure that we're available to give those individuals the options of doing things, whether it's in mail, in person, or online. And that's part of this whole modernization project.
Yeah, thank you for that, Tony. And I actually put in the same group of concerns that online as well as mail. It's just my comments aren't just restricted to mail. But anyway, I appreciate your answers, and so we can discuss the philosophy of this further during the working group. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and just like we said, we're not closing any channels. If some people always want to come into the office, and they can do that through an appointment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Dathan, followed by Representative Nolan, followed by Senator Hartley.
Thank you very much. Just looking at time and was hoping that you guys could bring to the working group an analysis of the like a dashboard of services and renewals and services that the DMV does. And I'd love to see a trend from sort of 2019 or 2018 up to now. And what has been done online compared to what usually is done by person. I'd love to see kind of how we're doing. I will say I was one of the people that was in and out of the DMV in it was 12 minutes in earlier January to renew my license. So I was very pleased. I have nothing to joke about with the DMV. So the definitive icebreaker that I have been talking about for years about the DMV, I'm going to have to find some new material. So thank you for that. The second question really to follow, and I'm going to have more that I'll send to the work group, but just to follow on from Representative Walker, I think the curiosity that I have is, you said that 25% are not accepting the roles, which means that 75% of the people are accepting the roles. So it sounds like either the amount of applications is lower than it's been in the past, or it's, and I'm just wondering if there is some sort of implication of the moving of the consolidation of human resource services to DAS has caused that. And I was wondering if you guys have done any sort of analyses of recruitment in terms of number of applications that you get per role. Would love to kind of see some data on that. And I guess one of my concerns really is that we're permanently reducing funding for some of these key roles in the governor's policy revisions by taking $3.2 million out of personal services due to unfunded roles. So that's just really my concern. And we can have a further discussion, but would love to see some analytics on your recruitment as well, and how that's working, and any channels that you guys have changed or done as a result of the movement to DAS. So thank you so much for your presentation today. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, just two topics, and we'll do that. I don't believe the lag in hiring is due to the movement to DAS. In fact, the reason why the reduction in personal services was that our planning assumptions did not incorporate a vacancy rate. And so the assumption was the DMV was fully staffed every single day for every single role. And so the adjustment that you saw was really to say, we do have a vacancy rate, and certain positions have a higher turnover rate than others. And so that really was the primary reason why you saw that reduction. But we will certainly.
So you're saying turnover of employees is a major issue?
Nope, it's not. The planning assumption was that we did not have turnover of employees. And so when we planned for a unit that had 400 people, it was 400 people every single day versus we have a 2% turnover rate. And we realized that it's seasonal. And if you're hiring high school students in the summer, maybe you'll be down in, say, part-time. So it was more, it's a realistic way of planning for staff and how, people, get promotions, get other jobs, move to another department. You just have a vacancy rate that I may, out of 10 people in a department over 3 months, lose 2, and they're gone for 2 months. Therefore, what I'm paying is less. And that's all we're collectively looking at. We're thinking about the vacancy rate and putting together the.
Yeah, I think maybe just an overall analysis on vacancies, because now I'm hearing that some of these could be part-time or seasonal workers. So I was
No, I was doing an example. No, it's not. And that was my poor use of, I was just explaining that there are different types of resources. We have 19-hour, 34-hour, and full-time in branch. Everybody else is 40 hours.
Okay, maybe then just bring to the working group, we can have a further discussion. If you can do some sort of employee analysis, like exactly how they break down and turnover rates. I don't want to take too much time from my colleagues, but thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And to be clear, the number on the sheets are full-time equivalents. Part-timers are not included in those numbers. Representative Nolan, you're up next, and followed by Senator Hartley.
Good morning, and thank you for coming before us. Most of my 2 questions were answered by those who just spoke in regards to the hiring and the move of HR. But I was curious to know, seeing that there is always, it seems like a lot of our agencies are having trouble hiring or keeping some of the employees that they hire. Are we doing anything special in your department in regards to attracting people in a different way, or trying to increase any various salaries to make them competitive with other areas that people are getting hired in?
I can't say that we're doing anything different. We're in the process of thinking about it and trying to strategize and trying to better understand, but I don't have any specifics.
Okay, and do you have, or can you show any difference in hiring of people of color, blacks and brown people, and in your agency that shows that they are being hired or recruited?
I don't have anything I can show, but I can, as part of sharing the information with you, the makeup of the agency will be part of that data.
Well, if you can prepare that for us, so maybe we can get it, I'd appreciate it, just to know where the numbers are in regards to that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Representative Nolan. Senator Hartley, followed by Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning to all, and to the Commissioner and your team. I first of all want to echo the comments of my colleagues, Representative Datham in particularly. You guys, hit it out of the park, and we are so grateful for the unbelievable yeoman efforts that you have made. The face of DMV has really done a 180, and you really are helping to represent this new page in Connecticut. So I'm very grateful for that. And your testimony, Madam Commissioner, also speaks to this overall goal of modernization. My question is, also in the budget, we are looking at the initiation of something called a convenience fee, which essentially means that on government operations, we will be passing along the processing fee that credit card companies levy. And, in the private sector, that in all likelihood is factored into the cost of whatever the commodity is that's being purchased. How will this be represented, for example, when, because we're trying to also encourage this online, out of line online new model. So how will we be incorporating this in? I'm understanding that fees across the board are not going to be changed, but yet this is now included in the governor's budget to the tune of $5 million in the biennium. I'm wondering how, for example, DMV is going to navigate this.
So what I need to do is we're in the early stages of working out the details. And so as part of sharing our modernization and update on the licensing, we will share that information, but I need to put that data together and get it back to you.
So is it going to be done department by department, or are we, have basically a statewide model that we're going to do? In other words, you send out, whatever the invoice is or whatever they pay, and it is kind of itemized as to the base cost of renewing a license, for example. If whatever other fees are, and this would be identified as a, I think we should be careful about how we describe this. A convenience fee, I think, has everybody very concerned, and people pay this in the commercial world. And I quite frankly don't know what other states are doing, but I'm very concerned about how we label this, so people, clearly understand that this is not another hidden fee, so to speak, that the state is recouping. So would you have more information for us when we meet on the next working group meeting, Madam Commissioner?
Yes, I will. We've taken down all your questions and we'll provide answers.
Yes, Senator Hartley, good morning. This is Tony Guerrero. Nice to see you.
Yeah, this is who? Who is that? I don't, can someone introduce the person to me?
How soon we forget, don't we, Senator? But again, that question obviously is one of concern with all of us too. So that is something that we're in early stages that we're going to have to really look at and determine how that processing will be taking place. But that is something that the commissioner and the team can get back to during the working group and make sure that we addressed all those issues.
Yeah, thank you. And if you could, I know you'll be working with DAS on this, and I will attempt to, convey these concerns as well. We need to be careful how we label this. It should be appropriately identified. Thank you, and look forward to understanding how this is going to roll out. And then we have two questions, right, Madam Chair? One other question would be, so we're having this conversation about somewhere between 16,000 and 22,000 new people moving into the state. So my question is, are you seeing this in your department? Or do we have that number of people who are in the state riding around with New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, whatever license plates? I'm wondering if this is translating into your operation. And then the second part of that question is, I would like to see when we get into the work group, if I might, just your numbers across the board on all of the licenses that you are issuing. A traditional license, a non-driver ID, non-documented. Just give us so we can kind of get a sense of those numbers, and maybe kind of a 3-year look at that if it's possible, Madam Commissioner.
Yep, we can get that too. So I'll let Gail talk about the out of state, what she's seeing, because I think go ahead, Gail, you have a closer.
Yes, we definitely are seeing an impact from out of state residents. With our appointment system, we've increased the number of appointments for out-of-staters 10%, and we've actually been doing special overtime Mondays to accommodate the number of out-of-staters so that we can address exactly what you're saying, which is to make sure that they meet all the turnaround time requirements for getting their Connecticut licenses. So it is the number one probably issue that we're trying to stay on top of due to the number of people moving in state. but we think we have a pretty good handle, but we'll get you some numbers, specific numbers when we have the work group so that you can see exactly what the trend is, but it is definitely an impact.
Okay, that would be very instructive to see. And then, of course, the overarching issue on this always is, the out-of-state plates that don't comply within the window. And, in my hometown, it's a serious problem. And so, we can talk more about that when we get into our working groups. I would be grateful.
Yeah, Senator Hartley, again, good morning. On two issues there with the out of state, just so you know, we've had even Super Mondays too, to try to accommodate individuals who have come into the state. As you know, Mondays usually we are closed, but we have opened on a lot of Mondays to accommodate certain groups to make sure they can get their licensing done or registrations or whatever it may be. In regards to those individuals that are coming into the state that aren't registering, that is a concern, obviously. I know specifically for your city of Waterbury, and I know there's been some working groups that now are looking into that. So this is something that we know about and that we will be working with those certain individuals to try to see how we can combat that.
Thank you very much, Deputy Commissioner. Yeah, and I would just like to understand when we have this, next round of work group, specifically what is happening with that. What is the plan to deal with this? But I so appreciate this being on, the front burner with the department. Thank you both. It's great to see you. Soon we'll maybe all be able to be back in the same room. Be safe. Looking forward to the next round. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator. Senator Lopes.
Hello, Commissioner. I'll be as brief as I can. I received some updates from your staff and department regarding the agency's COVID response. And they seem fairly impressive, the levels that you've taken to try to staff and the public safe. But if you could give me a quick update on what you guys have done and what you're doing going forward in terms of pandemic safety.
Okay, I'll let the deputy do that.
Good morning, Senator Lopes. So yes, I will say this, that when COVID hit about a year ago at this time, as we all know, DMV really changed the philosophy in regards to how we're going to deal with the public and how do we keep our employees safe and how do we keep the public safe. That is why we introduced the appointment system. That is why we were one of the first, and I will say this because I'm very proud of this, as an agency, we were one of the very first to start implementing plexiglass, social distancing, nurses, officers, to keep everyone as safe as possible. Electrostatic cleaning was done once a week throughout all the branches and high touch point areas where we had people going around the buildings to wipe down any issues that people, obviously in a manner that they would touch more than once. And as you know, that our COVID response has been very, very good in regards to the amount of people that come into this branch, in regards to other establishments, if you want to say stores or grocery stores or whatever it may be. So I'm very happy to say that this agency has done a spectacular job in regards to keeping our employees as safe as possible. So thank you for those comments.
No problem. Appreciate it. Thank you. All set.
Thank you, Senator Lopes. I see Representative Datham has her hand up, but I have a couple of questions to follow up on what my colleagues have said. So for the second time, one thing about fees and the other things that Senator Hartley was talking about, I've gotten a couple of comments or questions from constituents relative to the passport to parks, which is $15. Is that because the years went up and how long we have a license or a registration, excuse me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Because I think that that's not easily understood. And so people are asking me, why is this like this? I would suggest that maybe a fact sheet on those fees so that people understand it's because it's not 2 years, it's 3 years now, just as a suggestion. The other thing that I'm curious about is you are in regards to your personnel count, and you said you could service another 350,000 constituents or residents in the state of Connecticut. I'm wondering, with the amount of online work that you're doing, is there a way to close down some of the branches?
Oh, that's a tough one. We're within, so it's been a month, if maybe 6 weeks, where we're looking at trends. And we really need a little bit more time because as we've talked to other DMVs, pre-pandemic to determine what is the the rate that people move to online, they're anywhere from maybe 25 to 35%. And so we are, and I think that Debbie will put it this way, everything's on the table. We're always looking at where we are in terms of being able to service people, making sure that there are no delays. So right now, that topic has not come up yet. We've not discussed it.
And Senator Austin, that question, thank you for that question. That is something obviously the commissioner has met with her group to really look at this in a holistic approach, right? Because we want to make sure that we're still providing the service for the public, but in a way that benefits everyone. And right now, even though we are modernizing, this is just a start. And again, we're going to have to look at this trend probably in the next year to really see how much we're going to be modernizing, what the effects are, the amount of people, and then take a real look at the branches in regards to where we may see some cutbacks in regards to those branches, or, are there going to be other issues that maybe, to be quite honest with you, that maybe we can't. So that's something that really, as a team, we're going to have to look at holistically here.
I do think as where we have to, so we have to understand, so there used to be 2, 3, 4 hour wait times, and people used to come in and wait and get service when they could. COVID completely changed that, and then we moved to appointment systems, which really constrains capacity, if you think about it, in terms of how many appointments we can have. So that was that number, and that used to be anybody, anytime, anywhere, but you just had to wait. But that demand was always there. So now what we have are more data points. So we have capacity and demand that we're dealing with. I don't believe that, we've talked about more people moving in, so that demand is going to increase. And so what we're analyzing, and the data is still being collected, because we don't also want to create a situation where we now limit demand to then once again make it more difficult for people to get an appointment. And so this really the discussion of closing any of the channels is going to be difficult at this stage, because capacity and demand are still constrained. Demand is up, capacity is low. We've opened a channel through online to address some of that capacity, but certainly people are still going to the offices. There's every single day we're still having appointments that are booked. And sometimes it can take a week or two for people to get appointments. So this is a good question. We just need to understand with this new environment, what is going to look like in the future.
Thank you for that. I just want to make sure that we are really analyzing our physical properties in particular, that as we go on to more online, because it makes sense to me that we would start seeing a decrease in the amount of physical property that we need for DMV. At least that's what it looks like to me. And I just want to make a real clear statement that I appreciate what DMV has done in opening in the times of COVID to respond to residents. Many of the other state agencies did not do that. But you showed all of us that by having a comprehensive plan on safety concerns, that you've been able to deal face to face with the public in Connecticut in a fashion that provided them the resources that they needed. And I really so appreciate it. I'm hoping that other state agencies use your model in any other way that we entertain or work with the public. I think that's very important. I have Representative Datham, followed by Representative Ferraro.
Thank you for letting me ask a question for the second time. I'm wondering to the work group if you can bring support for expenses for that you've incurred under the CARES dollars. It looks like, moving to this full online system that we have, I was really surprised not to see any increased cost in the real-time online registration system for fiscal year 21, and was just wondering if the 1.3 from fiscal year 20 was the incurring of those costs that we did to move to this online system, and was just hoping that you could bring that to the working group. And so the other thing is, my second question you can bring to the working group. We have funding for the recreational use of cannabis, 7 slots of headcount for traffic safety. I'm wondering, have you been working with other states to understand what they've incurred for this when they have legalized cannabis and how that's affected their DMV? I'm going to let my other colleague ask his question, but thank you very much, Madam Chair, for letting me ask for the second go.
Thank you.
Thank you again for your presentation.
Representative Ferraro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This subcommittee, is it specifically DMV or does it cross Department of Transportation?
This is also Department of Transportation, and they come up in 4 minutes.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to reserve my questions for the next group then. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Representative. Commissioner, thank you very much for coming today. Representative Walker, are you all set?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you.
Representative France.
Bye.
Thank you.
Representative France, are you all set? And that seems to be everybody. So thank you very much. Ally, are you all set to let out the Department of Motor Vehicles? Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Representative France, do you have anything?
I was delaying getting the sign up. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will see all of you at the working group. Thank you very much. Ally, are you ready to let in DOT?
Yes, I'm letting them in right now, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. So we will see all of you at the working group. Thank you very much. Ally, are you ready to let in? So Gary, I think you need to mute whomever. Thank you. Gary. Thank you. All righty then. Oh, there. Hi, Commissioner. How are you?
I've done mute. Doing very well. Good to see you, Senator.
Nice to see you too. So some of your people need to go on mute because they're listening to me. They're listening to us talk, and it's going to reverberate back. So Bob Hard, DOT, if you could go on mute, that would be great. All right, I think we've got everybody on mute now, except for the Commissioner. You can come back off mute.
Sometimes easier said than done. Okay, I'm on.
I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. So, Commissioner, as you know, we're doing something a little bit different this year. We're not having you read a statement to us. We really appreciate that. If you could introduce your team and we'll get right into questions, that would be great.
That sounds very good. Looking forward to it. So with me today are the 2 Deputy Commissioners, Mark Rolfe and Garrett Eucalito, my Chief of Staff, Jackie Primo, Bob Card, who you know as the Chief of Finance and Administration. On the finance side, we have Gary Pescalito, Lori Canary, Mark Hayes, and Darren Myers. The Bureau Chief for Engineering and Construction is Scott Hill. He's on. The Bureau Chief for Highway Operations, Paul Rizzo. He's on. Bureau Chief for Policy and Planning is Kim Lassay. The Bureau Chief for Public Transportation is Rich Andreski. Pam Siccato and Ann Kleza, who I'm sure you all know, they're on. And I've got Carlo Leone, who you may not remember, but he was a senator who was a special advisor to our department, and he is on.
I remember Carlo very well, and I'm mad at you for stealing him, but that's all right.
You
We'll get over that.
We definitely appreciate his guidance, and I'm sure it'll work well on both sides having him be with us.
I agree with you. I'll have a couple of questions to kick it off, and then I'm sure my colleagues will start raising their hand in the chat. So I want to talk a little bit about the position count. I see that
Sure.
you have 3,361 and 3,368 in year 2. How many of those positions are actually filled? Or how many do you have open?
Garrett, can you give a quick answer on how many are open? And I do want to take this opportunity before Garrett responds to say to you, Senator, we've had this conversation before. Aside from the fact that as we try to fill them, we're constantly creating new vacancies, and we're looking at a cliff next year. And I have to work very, very hard with OPM and DIS because we have to start filling now, or we're going to be in serious shape next year with the retirements that are coming at us and the fact that we're still playing catch up in terms of filling them. So Garrett, at this point, can you tell her where we are in terms of our actual staffing?
Yes. Hi, Senator. I believe we transmitted a chart detailing that to the Appropriations Committee, but I can tell you as of February 11th, we had 3,076 positions filled.
So you have approximately 300 open then?
Yeah, 311 vacancies.
Okay. That's stunning to me because that's 10% of your positions, give or take.
Yeah, not only is it 10%, but Senator, the reason that we're particularly sensitive on it with all that's been happening with COVID, we're constantly trying to balance our highway operations and our transportation operations. So, it's a time that, if anything, we've got to stay right on top of it. Believe me, we are working daily and weekly with both OPM and DIS and the Office of the Governor, because I've got to try keeping these positions moving in the pipeline. It's serious to have 10% down, and on top of that, have all that we're dealing with the COVID really does put a burden on us.
Thank you for that. And speaking of COVID, that leads me to my second request. If you could bring to the working group the amount of money that came in relative to the federal funding. And my understanding is you have some federal dollars that are attached to capital infrastructure improvements, but the federal dollars are being spent over a 10-year time frame. Is that true?
Again, Mark or Garrett, you want to jump in on this?
Garrett's saying no.
Okay, go ahead, Garrett.
Thanks, Senator. So, and Bob Card can jump in as well for from our Bureau Chief for Fiscal. But we did receive 3 different allotments of funding. Essentially, one was the first CARES Act, which was funding for the Federal Transit Administration. The next was the bill, which was called CRISA. Again, that had funding from the Federal Transit Administration, and it also had a small amount of money for state DOTs through the Federal Highway Administration. And that was specifically intended in what AASHTO, the Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, as well as our agency requested, is funding to help fill the revenue gap that was created due to COVID. So state DOTs across the country lost revenue. So 125 million came from federal highway, and that's intended to backfill so nothing had to be cut in terms of operations. But we did not receive capital dollars per se yet. I believe the Biden administration is talking about, once they finish this next COVID bill, their intent is then pivot towards more of a stimulus focus, whereas everything else was COVID response.
And I'm going to,
Go ahead.
I wanted to
Commissioner.
join in for 1 second. The only thing that I wanted to add to that is when we did get the CARES funding, the one line we didn't get any CARES funding for was the Hartford line. It's an anomaly because instead of calling it a commuter line, the FRA had designated it as a high-speed line, which is great. We've got one of the only operating high-speed lines in the country. But the problem is that there was absolutely no funds for it. So we sent letters to our delegation. I had a meeting again this past week with Congresswoman DeLaura. They are going to work on it. We're staying on top of that to try and get some funding on that end as well.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And I'm hoping that the state has at least a dozen projects ready should we get to a federal infrastructure project. I know I came up with a dozen or two in my district locally, and I find that the need is great.
Mark, if you want to jump in on that and talk a little bit about the fact that we are well prepared with a lot of projects, including rotaries and everything else that'll go on in every one of the communities.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, we've been working on a stimulus package in one form or another for a number of months now. Within our capital program, we have program projects. Those are projects that are funded from design through construction. We also have a separate category, which we call over-programmed, and that's a pretty robust set of projects totaling about $1.8 billion in its projects around the state. Those are projects that we're actively developing but have not been funded through construction yet. So if there is stimulus money available, we feel like we're well positioned to deliver projects.
Great. I love hearing that because I consider those kinds of projects to be essentially jobs programs, and it helps out our infrastructure, but it's a jobs program. So Representative Walker. Okay. I know that many people are on other committee meetings at the same time. So I'm going to go on to, I know that Representative France is on there. Is Senator Minor on? Don't see him either. So Representative Zawistowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question's related to the positions for implementing the highway use tax. You're mentioning that I believe that there's 7 positions devoted to that. Could you just give us a little bit of an overview of what you see as what these positions do and how enforcement will be handled if the bill does go through?
Mark, you want to go and handle that for me, please?
Bob can.
Yep.
Oh, Bob. Okay, Bob. Yeah, there you are. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah. So beginning in 2023, funding is provided to support positions in the Department of Revenue Services. So it's not in DOT that they'll be existing. The money will be set up for them, and eventually they'll get it to DRS instead.
Okay.
Nope.
If you could just explain to me what those positions are going to be doing and how this new tax will be enforced.
So it'll be for revenue examiners to review the records of the carriers paying the tax, and for tax correction examiners to administer and resolve the more complex tax processes. But beyond that, like I said, it's going to be Department of Revenue Services.
Is this designed to be a self-reporting initiative that you're actually going to be able to have the truck drivers get you the information? I'm just unclear as to how this is going to work.
I believe it's going to be a self-reporting, but it's going to be a DRS issue, so they could probably be in a better position to answer those questions.
Yep.
Okay.
This is just coming from the Special Transportation Fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, Representative Zawistowski, I can touch a little bit. I think some of the questions, some of your questions are probably better suited for DRS, but I can tell you in conversations I've had with them, as with many other taxes, it is self-reporting, but DMV and state police today enforce motor carrier safety regulations on our roadways, where they'll do spot checks of the vehicles to ensure that they have the appropriate stickers today, or that they're not overweight. And my understanding is it'd be a similar type of enforcement measure where it's spot checks to ensure enforcement. But yeah, I think it's the further delineation of exactly what those positions will be doing are more appropriate for DRS.
And actually, I will ask DRS in the working groups a little bit more detail on it. But if you are talking about enforcement stops, like for overweight trucks and things like that, I am also concerned about forcing some of the heavy truck traffic onto local roads, especially I have a district that has parallel roads to 91. It's the same issue that came up during tolls, and I think we just need to talk about this a little bit more. One other question, since we're getting to two, and this is something you can bring to the working group. I wanted to get an update on the UPass program to find out. I know that the ridership is probably down due to the pandemic, but I want to try to find out what we're talking about for ridership and where you think that's headed in the future. If you want to comment now, fine. If you want to hold that up for the working group, that's fine as well.
Rich or Garrett?
We can bring details on ridership to the working group for sure. I know there's legislation currently pending in the legislature about UPass, which we are following, but we can bring you details on the existing program.
Great, thank you very much, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Lopes.
Senator, you're muted.
Yeah, Senator Lopes. I think you're muted. Okay, I will go on to Representative Datham, followed by Representative Ferraro.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for all your work. You've been a great partner in explaining transportation issues to my constituents over the last year or so, and really appreciate you and your team's efforts. Really wanted to get an understanding, first of all, about the ridership in terms of there is a achieve savings through reduced services on the New Haven line. And it looks like from the comments that we are having a reduction within the DOT for ridership due to the decrease, and we're making it permanent for the decreases seen during the pandemic. And this is really concerning to my constituents. Many people in Fairfield County, as you know, do commute regularly to the city, and they are merely staying at home due to the pandemic. But most of the businesses that they work in are indicating that, come wide vaccine distribution, that they will be expected to be coming back. I'm worried about permanent decreases in service is not going to do our constituents who rely on Metro North to get into New York, and would love for you to talk about that.
Okay, and before I turn it over to Rich, I'll have you give an update, but I'm on weekly calls with the MTA, and I'm also on biweekly calls with the 7 states. And right now, New York is at about 10% occupancy in terms of leasing, and Boston's at the same. And New Jersey is experiencing the exact same ridership we are. So where we may be up to potentially around 18 to 20% going into the city, and that's, believe me, a generous number. It was down at 8%. It had gotten up to about 12 or 15%. We were having more ridership intrastate. In other words, the people that are going between New Haven and Greenwich, but the ridership into New York has been abysmal. So where we were insistent on lowering the number of trains because we're paying for all those train crews and all those trains operating, what we have captured is that we've got it at about 60 to 70%. I'll let Rich give you the facts on that. We have more than enough capacity, and we're able to adapt. And we're watching it the same way the MTA is. As they see the ridership is coming back, as they see the businesses start to open, we will be in a position to be able to respond to that. So we're not doing anything so drastic that we're going to lose the conductors and engineers and have to wait 2 to 3 years to go and get that type of personnel back in. And we're advancing on getting our equipment as well. So Rich, can you respond a little bit more on it? I think I gave enough cover for you on it.
Commissioner, thank you. And thank you for the question. Yeah, I'm Bureau Chief for Public Transportation. We have been monitoring ridership, and I think the big open question, as the Commissioner pointed out, is the extent to which telework will continue or not. We're seeing some indications, particularly in industries like finance and other industries that are sort of very easily done through remote and telework, that there may be full-time or part-time telework beyond the pandemic. And if that's the case, we don't expect all of the riders to return during the peak periods. Right now, we run 63% of normal train service, and we have about 20% of normal ridership. So a very substantial amount of service relative to the ridership we're seeing. I'll point out that these service changes are not necessarily permanent, although they are in the budget. Should ridership, begin to come back over time, we certainly can come back with additional service. But I think at this point, we'll have a fairly robust schedule for our riders, including peak period. We'll still be offering peak services, and in the budget proposal, we also have some additional service we'll be introducing on the Waterbury line.
Okay, thank you so much, Rich, for that. I just get very concerned at making these changes permanent. I do get an occasional constituent who reaches out to me complaining about the ability to get into the city, particularly after peak hours. So it's something that I'm going to be continuing to monitor, but thank you for your explanation. If we could I know you sent some details on the ridership to the appropriations group this morning. I know in the past you did some analyses that talked about overall subsidies on each of the lines. And how ridership and subsidies per ticket work. If we could get an update from that from 2019. My second question really has to do with the asset management and the pay-as-you-go. We have an increase of 100 million in 22 and 200 million in 23. I'd like to understand how the department is changing their positions on what is bonded and what is not bonded, and how this asset management system is going to facilitate how we are managing it, not just in the rail infrastructure, but also the overall DOT infrastructure. And if this is something you need to bring to the working group, I fully understand. I know my colleagues really would like to see a lot of details and what projects are included in there. But if you could at least give an explanation, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Bob Card, Garrett. Bob, are you on?
Yep, just struggling to.
Okay, yeah, pull up the page. Yep.
So I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? I got the lead into it. Are you asking what the asset management portion
No,
will be doing?
I'm just kind of trying to get an overall understanding of, we have this sort of pay-as-you-go that has increased by 100 million in 22, 200 million in 23.
Yep.
What is the sort of explanation, and why are we bonding less? And this is, looking like it might be more things that are not bondable, but how is this asset management system going to facilitate our overall upgrade system on within DOT? We have a serious amount of work that our state needs in roads. We all can agree that our infrastructure is crumbling and we need to address it. And I'm just wondering, is this the right mechanism for doing so? And how are these investments going to ensure that we're spending money in the right appropriate way?
That's where I had a little confusion there on the mix between the two questions. So the 100 million is and 200 million is a result of not bonding for projects that we need to do. So that drives debt service up, and that's the issue that's trying to be addressed. So they're using cash to address some of those problems. The asset management piece of that is prioritizing those projects, and I think Mark or Scott Hill could talk a little more on that, but asset management is doing the best projects in the order and in the timing that fits in with the rest of the plan. So if I wasn't sure exactly which one of those you wanted to address, but it's part of the 100 million will be for projects that are prioritized under the asset management plan that might have been bonded, but we're going to pay cash for them.
And I'll let Mark jump in here, either Mark or Scott, because everything on the federal side is going to asset management. We've gotten tremendous reports from both Federal Highway and FTA on the fact that, the way that we have approached it has been very aggressive, and they appreciate being able to view it from that end. So Mark, you want to talk a little bit about the asset management side?
Sure. I'll just speak in general about the additional pay-as-you-go funds. This was really result from discussions between the department and OPM. Our asset management program has proved to be highly effective. We've identified that there's a large number of projects that we need to do on the preservation side, which have a shorter lifespan than the typical 20-year bonds that we've been using for as long as I can remember. So this is a way to reduce our bonded indebtedness, but still allow us to perform the necessary preservation type projects, the repaving projects that last for 10 years, the bridge work projects that give us the short-term repairs to a bridge and allow us to maintain it for a longer period of time. So we can provide a lot more detail in the working session if you like about our asset management program and all the data that we use to guide our decision making.
That would be helpful. And, I know everyone's very curious about the sort of projects that would fall under pay-as-you-go. So if you have an indication of those sort of projects, that would be super helpful. And I'm sure someone else will ask the question about other bonded projects that are in priority for the asset management system. So thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Ferraro, followed by Senator Lopes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first and foremost, I would like to welcome my good friend, Joe Giletti. It's not often that two kids running around the campus of Southern Connecticut can enjoying the college life can get back together professionally 46 years later. You look great, and good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Charlie. And I thought we agreed we're never going to talk about what went on at Southern.
I'm keeping it very, very off the books. But anyway, also, I'd just like to start out by saying that Representative Dathan, it's odd that she hits one of my questions, but when she hit both of my questions back to back, I said, "Oh my God!" But it did raise a couple of things that I want to follow through on. Going to the ridership of the train system that we have in Connecticut, and certainly Commissioner Giletti, your previous experience in rail is a godsend to the state of Connecticut. It is obvious that the pandemic has hurt the ridership and more dramatically out of state into New York than it has locally. And just on that, do you anticipate, even with the advent of the pandemic and the increase in potentially working from home as a result, an eventual return to the original numbers ridership going into New York City?
Representative, the best way that I can answer that is, one, we are following through, as I already mentioned, I talk with the MTA every single week, and they've got a number of investigations going on, and they've done a lot of editorials on the fact that businesses have to start reopening. Same thing with Boston, so that people will, start coming back into the city. Now, after 9/11, a lot of businesses moved out of New York. They moved over to New Jersey. Some came into Westchester and Fairfield County. But we also saw a resurgence where that came back in as people felt more comfortable with going in. I think we're going to learn an awful lot as this vaccine suddenly, fully gets implemented. People are wanting to get into New York. We did see that even without the shows being open and the restaurants being open, what started to come back before the regular ridership was the weekend ridership, which is an indication that people still want to go into the city. So to give you the best answer I can, I just sat down with Amtrak, the president of Amtrak. They are anticipating that it's going to take them a year or two to get to 30 to 40% of their original ridership.
Wow.
I think we're a little bit different in the fact that Amtrak is much more of a discretionary ridership. We've done everything we can to assure the riding public that everything we're doing on those cars, first off, the air exchange rate in them is changing out every 5 minutes. It's one of the safest ways to travel. We've got a big mask campaign going on. The governor has been out there, as well as others, to turn around and encourage people to use the mask. And we saw our bus ridership come back very, very strong. So what I'd say to you is that we're going to learn an awful lot, particularly in the next 2 to 3 months, because that's where we'll start to see whether or not New York starts to open up restaurants and plays and the other things that'll start to bring it in. And like I said, there's a constant monitoring of how many businesses are coming back in. So to the second part of your question, which is, we've all learned now, including myself, I never would have anticipated we could have gotten as much done with telework that we're getting right now. So I want to turn around and from the standpoint that we are going to have to adjust our services as we see this teleworking is going to change how people are going in. A lot of businesses are now saying they're going to bring people in on an A-B schedule, where some people are coming in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, others are coming in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that way they don't have to have as much lease space going on. So that is also going to affect, which we were already starting to see, a change in the commuting hours. So we're trying to anticipate all of that as we go through. And I'm going to say we're being as flexible as possible so that we can adjust the schedules as we see the ridership trends start to come back in. So, the best answer I can give you is I am very, very hopeful that we're going to start seeing ridership numbers that start to creep up through the summer and maybe get us up into the 30 or 40%, going into the fall. And then you're going to have to see whether or not people are really buying into it and what we see for ridership. Let me give you a positive, though, from it. As we've been able to adjust the schedules, if you remember, I was constantly coming to the legislature from both the Metro North position and where I am now over the fact that we were so desperate for cars. Now we're actually starting to receive cars. We're going to be in a better position for reallocating cars and being able to respond to the different lines as to the best service that we can provide out there. So it's been a reset and gave us a chance to take a breather as we're looking at how do we respond to it. So what I'd like to assure you is that we've got a great team on the transportation. We got a great team on all sides, but the public transportation side is truly there, ready to go and make changes. And the MTA is doing the exact same thing. In fact, just for the sake of discussing it, when we turned around and started modifying the schedule, the MTA followed suit. Boston did something quite different. They actually suspended all their service and decided they were doing on-demand trains. As they started to see people coming, they start putting trains out. We've tried to maintain a regular schedule so that way there people could count on the trains that were there. And we've adjusted so that way there we can financially be able to use the CARES funding to keep us going as long as possible while we're waiting for that return to ridership. And I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Commissioner. Actually, much more than I expected. Thank you very much on that. So with the, my second question, with the movement towards renewable energy and, 100% renewables going into 2040, 2050, reducing automobile emissions through electrification and all that. one of the components of that would be light rail and the increase in using it for commuter purposes. Do you have can you just speak a little bit about maybe a 5-year, 10-year plan to increase the light rail in Connecticut?
Well, I think you just played music to Garrett's ears. And Garrett, do you want to talk a little bit about, what we're seeing with the TCI initiative and where that's going to provide for the funding to more electrics, not just in passenger service, but with our vehicles out there, putting in more charging stations, and being able to respond. So Garrett, you want to talk a little bit about TCI because that fits right into this.
Well, thanks, Joe, and Representative Ferraro. I think with respect to increased commuter options, I think we've seen great success, and other parts of the country are seeing great success with bus rapid transit systems, which are very flexible and can be completely electric. So the ability to have a bus only lane or with significantly less expensive and slightly more flexible routings are something that a lot of the country is looking at right now. Indianapolis and Pittsburgh both have major systems being built out, Los Angeles as well, because you don't have the tracks in the ground, which can't really move those easily, versus having a pavement type system that can be rerouted. So that's something that we've definitely been looking at, especially on the post road, as something you can have traffic signals that give buses priority. So it's rapid transit for bus passengers, nicer buses with Wi-Fi, charging outlets, things like that. It's definitely something the department has been looking at. And the post road US 1 is a corridor that would be really well suited to have BRT light on the surface there.
And thank you, Commissioner, and good luck going forward, and look forward to seeing more of you. And
Thank you, Representative. Are you all set?
thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Lopes, followed by Senator Hartley, followed by Representative Rosario. Senator Lopes, are you there? Senator Hartley.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioner and team for being with us. Yeah, you do us proud all the time, and I am grateful for your leadership and your team's leadership. And you know how to poach, sir. You took Ann and you took Carlo. You didn't just do one, you had a double hit. So I just want that on the record, Madam Chair. Okay, anyway, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate your building your expertise in your team, and for that, you're to be commended. Commissioner, if you could, I mean, if it's not appropriate now, when you come back to us on the work group, give us an update on the Mix Master project, would you, sir? And then also an update on the Waterbury line. We've done the positive train control. I think it's probably completed. You have been masterful, I think, in using this time, and this generally is across the department, to pivot when service was completely flatlined, to then go to infrastructure, so that we didn't have all of those interruptions. And I know, for one, in our own community in Waterbury, we would always have those shutdowns. So I'm grateful that this time was used, and I think that we will be the beneficiary of that pivot. I've heard my colleagues ask you for the ridership numbers, and I also am interested in those, to see them on the lines, the ridership lines, and also on the main line, just to kind of get our arms around this. And then I'm just curious. So on this HUT thing, and you mentioned that a lot of it is DAS questions. I don't know, are there other models that show what the reliability is of the potential revenue? Because it is this self-reporting system, and I'm not sure how that has worked in other jurisdictions. I'm assuming there's some other models out there for us. And I'm throwing a lot at you because I'm trying to talk fast until the chairman puts out the hook on me. But don't listen to that, Chairman Austin. Anyway, on this change now to TCI, and my question, and this is the question to people on the street. So we're going to be paying an increase in the gas tax, and people understand that's how we fund roads and bridges. But this, what, if any, is the Department of Transportation going to have at its disposal from this proposed increase in the gas tax?
Okay, I think I've got about 5 or 6 questions from you, and I'll try hitting it, but I'm going to also turn it over.
And you can bring some of the information to the working group because she only has 2. You pick the 2.
Senator, thank you for jumping in with that. That's I was just going to turn around, like even on the mix master, I could have Scott give you a quick, but it would make more sense if we dealt with it elsewhere, because then we could give you a little more detail about how we've been flexible over what we can do and how far we can go with it. In terms of the Waterbury line, you are exactly right. We did a lot of construction work. We turned around and were able to get the ties put in. We are still working on finishing up that signal system so that by the end of this calendar year, we're going to be in a position that we can run a lot more trains on the Waterbury line. And because of what we may be able to do with moving some of the M8s over onto Shoreline East, we may have additional equipment. So there's a lot of opportunity there. But again, I'm going to put that off to another discussion.
Yeah, please.
In terms of the gas tax potential, and again, it's a potential increase, I would turn around and say, we're all going through that. Garrett, do you want to go and answer in that? Otherwise, I'll leave it that. We can leave that one for future discussion, because the last I saw, the potential was maybe a 5-cent increase in terms of the gas tax. They all have to do this federal reporting. It's a reporting that's already being done, but go ahead, Garrett. I see you unmuted.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, so Senator Harley, we can bring you a whole host of information for the subcommittee. The limits of the utilization of those funds, the first year of the program is estimated to generate around 89 million in proceeds, and the 10th year will be 117 million. And the utilization of the funds are intended to be clean transportation, so it could be a multitude of options. And we have some infographics and sheets laying out potential type options that we can bring to the subcommittee for you. But really,
there's nothing for infrastructure there. People want better roads. They don't want construction on the roads. They don't want to have the road shut down, at 7 o'clock till 7 o'clock the next morning because people work, all kinds of flexible hours. So you're talking about clean transportation. I get it. What about infrastructure?
I think the governor's other proposal to stabilize the transportation fund through the highway use fee is what the governor's proposal is, to extend the stability of the STF out for the next 5 years to allow us to have, that would allow us for an additional 1.1 billion in infrastructure projects, exactly what we need to be doing. And the TCI funds are a lot more localized projects, which can be infrastructure. We've talked to some communities that want to see improvements to their intersections to reduce crashes and reduce emissions, converting to roundabouts, putting in place new bus shelters, and converting the entire bus fleet to electric to remove those pollutants from the communities. So there's a lot of infrastructure that could be done as well.
But once again, the fact is they pay increased taxes. They're not getting it on their roads. I understand. The other piece of that is, so this is a compact with 2 states and then DC. And so with regard to really having, some kind of discernible impact on the environment, it appears minimal. Rhode Island's a small state. Massachusetts, I guess, just signed on or is potentially signing on. And then there's us. Hardly a compact.
Well, so it's not a compact. The governor signed an MOU to work to implement the program. I want to be careful not to use the word compact. There's legal implications there. But even though it's just Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut, we're still going to see a 26% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And just our 3 states combined are over 3/4 of all emissions in New England and 80% of GDP in New England. And the big impact for Connecticut is on particulate matter from tailpipes in our communities that have highway infrastructure and diesel buses and diesel trucks. And that will remove the particulate matter from individuals breathing that in, and significant concerns for asthma and other health issues.
If you could incorporate that into your answer, so we have that in print for us.
Yep.
That's very important. And when you come to us, can you just give us an update on your snow removal account? And then I'll be interested just to hear an update on the excess federal funds that you have so expertly got Connecticut to benefit from, and what went on in 2020 and what you're anticipating going forward. And I'm going to get slapped or hooked by my chair. So I'm going to say thank you very much for being with us.
And thank you for even mentioning the snow removal and stuff. I haven't had a chance to acknowledge Paul Rizzo and what they were able to accomplish in the middle of COVID and everything else in terms of taking care of our roads, and what a great job that was done there. But be happy to get back to you, Senator, and I'll turn again to our chair.
Yeah, can I just say, I want to also commend the department and the governor when they put out those policies to close the highways to tractor trailer trucks during those massive snowstorms. In my own neighborhood, it made such a difference coming up that hill on 84 in Southington. It was a different world. So that's the first time I've seen that done, and I think you had a great result.
It actually was very, very well received because it allowed us to keep all of our plows going. And if you noticed, at the same time, Pennsylvania, who did not put the ban in, had a multiple accident that shut their entire highway down. We were able to keep our roads clear. We were able to open them up the next morning, and it was so successful the first time. We used it again the second time. We use it very judiciously, but it did make a big difference in our ability to respond.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Senator Hartley, for your 55 questions that you asked. And I just want to say I never, ever would commit physical violence on anybody.
No, I know that.
I'm a pacifist. Senator Lopes, followed by Representative Rosario.
Hello, Commissioner. I apologize. I have been bouncing back between this hearing and another hearing. So if I say anything repetitive, feel free to cut me off and start again. But just a quick question, hopefully. I know I heard earlier that a lot of the federal money, additional federal stimulus money has not come in yet, but there are some grant funding available from the federal government. One in particular, it was this Infrastructure for Rebuilding America grant with applications due in March. Are we taking advantage of these, and what are we doing? What projects do we have lined up for this potential grant project? I think it's somewhere in the range of almost $900 million in this grant program.
Well, Senator, I will turn around and tell you that we are in active negotiations with our delegation. That's why I started off by telling everyone that even as recently as this past week, I had a conference with Representative Rosa DeLaura on things that we can go after. We are staying on top of all of it, and I also appreciate the shot that I was given about bringing Ann Kleza with Pam Zaccato, and we are very, very close to our federal partners. This past year alone, we got 50% of all the money that FRA gave out nationally for 2 of our bridges in Connecticut. So I want to point out that I've got a great department that is watching every available federal dollar. We've never not utilized it. And in fact, when other states have not taken full advantage, we've been in a position of being able to go and get projects done by grabbing that money as it became available. So we will be applying for everything that comes across. And I'll put that again to when we have another longer session that we can tell you some of the things that we've been successful with and some of the things we're going after.
Sounds good. I'm sure I'll be hearing you guys over the Transportation Committee. So there's no rush on this, but if you could give me a readout of what you applied for on this particular grant, I'd love to know. No, that's it for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Rosario.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioner. Good to see you all. Two quick ones. Tree removal service. Is there any of that that's being done in-house, and how much of it is being farmed out, and how much of that is going to small minority contractors? That's one. Number two, cannabis funding. In the same vein, I jumped the gun earlier and asked that of DMV, but it was under your purview. I see that there are some monies allocated for advertising and funding, and I wanted to know how much of that would also be in-house or farmed out. And just two big ones real quick that you don't have to answer now, that you can bring to the work group, would be just an update on Sikorsky and an update on Barnum Station.
Okay, and again, I saw Garrett, you looking up when the cannabis thing came on. I wouldn't touch that one, but anyways, having said it, if you could talk a little bit about that. The Sikorsky, I want you to know that Sikorsky was extremely pleased at the amount of support they got from us, and actually called the governor up to thank them for all the work that we've done to try and keep them moving along and to address some of their transportation concerns with the roadways going in. In terms of the other, Garrett, you were ready to jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll let someone else talk about the trees. That's not my bailiwick, but on the cannabis line item there. So the Department of Transportation is the home for our state's highway safety office, and we do all the ads you see about drunk driving and texting and driving. That's all through us. We receive federal funds for those types of advertisements. What the governor's included in his budget is a line item for us to be able to do a lot of advertising around the topic, and education really around the topic of impaired driving when it comes to utilization of cannabis. And this comes from, we've been meeting with other states that have legalized and asked them what they wish they had done differently. And all of them have told us, Colorado, Washington, Massachusetts, they've all told us we need to do a lot of education about that you don't actually drive better when you're high. Because that is a lot of people think that. So it's a lot of education. And so what we do is we use firms to do the ads, and then we pay to place the ads. We don't design the ads or anything in-house. We don't have a team to do that.
One of the reasons why I asked that, because one of the challenges that we're facing right now with the Department of Public Health is they have these massive ad campaigns to reach out to certain communities like mine, communities of color, but they don't advertise in our communities. They don't advertise with La Voz. They don't advertise with, our local, Hispanic churches and African-American church radios. And that's the community you're trying to reach. And you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on FSB. It may not be reaching the target community. So if we can kind of target those funds, should some sort of cannabis legislation be realized, that we target those communities that need to be reached in those media outlets. So that's number one. And if there's any update on Barnum Station, we'd love to hear about that in the work group, unless you have something now.
Rosario, I just want to point out what you just raised is exactly what we aim to do. And we actually work closely with the federal partners, want to see that we're targeting the impacted communities. So we do micro target our ads to really, and place it in Spanish speaking periodicals as well as radio stations, because we know it's not a one fit solution, and things are tailored for the communities we're trying to reach.
Thank you so much.
All set, Representative?
Yeah, just if I can get an update on Barnum Station. I know it was kind of like in limbo. I talked to Commissioner Lehman about some ideas, so would love to hear about that in the work group.
Okay, we'll put that to the work group. Y cuando tú tienes tiempo para mi conversación en español, por favor.
Pues, un placer siempre. Gracias, comisionador.
So thank you very much, Representative Rosario. So I want to go back to the what Representative Dathan brought up on the pay-as-you-go. I'm not really there on that. I think that we should be bonding these projects out. That's $100 million in year one and $200 million in year two. I really have to understand what is going on with that. So if you could bring some real detailed information to the working group on the pay-as-you-go system. Right now, I'm not inclined to see that follow through. I firmly believe in infrastructure being done, but when we have essentially very low interest rates, when we can repair projects that have a 20-year life instead of in year one, but over a 20-year, 10-year, 15-year time frame, I think that makes far more sense. And it's being paid for by the people that are actually using it. So if you're planning it out over 20 years, people that are driving it over 20 years are actually the ones that are paying for it instead of us paying for everything in the future. I'm also not there on TCI yet on what we're doing with that. I don't see the dollars really being spent on transportation totally, and I certainly don't see it being spent. I talked to Garrett about this vis-a-vis rural communities who will be paying for most of this because Western Connecticut will be able to afford the electric cars. Eastern Connecticut in our more rural areas, not necessarily. And, the cars are far more expensive on the electric side. And so poorer people will be paying both the higher gas prices and not see the benefits. So they tend to support the transportation system at a greater level. That is my sense on both the mileage tax and on the TCI. So I'd like to have a real understanding. I was and continue and remain in support of tolls, which I think spreads it out over out-of-state people. And that is not what I see in either of these two endeavors. So I need to see the data that shows that out-of-state people using our roads are paying for them like out-of-state people, like I pay every time I leave the state when I go into Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, Pennsylvania. And on the TCI, why, if we're going to do that, I would like to see a bigger state involved in that relative to New York, relative to Pennsylvania, relative to the states that could make a real difference instead of having us take that total response to this. I'm not even certain it's a climate initiative, quite frankly. Again, Eastern Connecticut is going to pay more there too. Or not necessarily Eastern Connecticut, but the more rural areas that travel farther just to get to someplace, any place. I would, my good friend, Representative Rosario, I remind him to add in the indigenous communities. We have indigenous communities all over the state of Connecticut, and we need to remember that those communities nationally had the highest rates of COVID. But I think that if we're going to start talking to minority communities, we have to remember all our minority communities in Connecticut and around many of our cities. We have large numbers of the Haitian community or the Asian communities. I think we have to expand how we're talking with people. In that, I'm looking to see Representative Walker. Are you back from your other committee? I don't think so. I know Representative France was off on another committee and Senator Minor off on another committee. Senator Ciccarella, do you have anything as a member of the subcommittee?
Thank you. And no, I do not. Also bouncing back and forth. But thank you for putting this together.
You're welcome. Senator Lopes, anything else?
Only one small quick comment, slight criticism to the Senate Chair of Appropriations. I really wish people on the legislature would stop saying that electric vehicles are more expensive. They were. There is a slight premium to some, but the reality is they've become to the level of affordability. And I just keep hearing people perpetuating the same myth that they're more expensive vehicles. They really aren't. FYI, as a lot of you know, I drive an electric car. I bought a 3-year-old Volkswagen electric car for $12,000 with a full warranty. They're affordable to working class people. They're out there. So just a pet peeve. I wish people would stop saying they're so expensive.
Yeah, but
Thank you.
there's no electronic charging stations in Eastern, in a lot of the rural areas for you to get around. So you have to do it all.
That's
at
true. But
home.
on the other hand, I installed an electric charging station in my house. It cost me $130. So it wasn't the end of the world.
Yeah. I'll invite you out to my neck of the woods and we'll talk. Senator, who else do I have on here that is a chairman? Representative Rosario.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wholeheartedly echo your sentiments about reaching out to the indigenous communities, the Haitian, Asian American communities as well. You have my full support on that. And I look forward to the work group. And thank you. You've done a great job, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Zawistowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank everybody from DOT for being here today to answer our questions. I think we'll have some interesting discussions during the working groups, and I do appreciate the jobs that you're all doing. I think I probably skipped on that at the beginning when I first asked questions. We do rely on you heavily for a lot of really good work, and the plows, the snow plows did an amazing job this year. Thank you.
Commissioner, do you have anything you want to say and wrap up?
And the only thing I would say in wrap up is, I honestly did appreciate some of the discussion about who we've hired, and from the standpoint that we continue to bring out the best in people. Where when you make the comments about how the roads are and everything else, we actually relay those comments to the entire agency so that they know that it's appreciated. And I appreciate that. Right now I have a fantastic team. I introduced it at the beginning, but as you can see, when the questions come in, we are ready for them. We're ready to go and respond. We're ready to sit in committee with you. There's a lot to do going forward. We have a lot of opportunity in front of ourselves, particularly with some of the funding that may become available, particularly with where our delegation is and what possibilities we have for federal funding coming forward. So want you to know that we're on top of it. Want you to know that we look forward to having these conversations with you going forward, and do really appreciate an opportunity like this for you to ask questions and for you to see the team and know that, we're ready to respond to the questions that you're throwing at us.
So I do have, I thought we were all done, but I do have Representative Reyes and Senator Hartley who have their hands up again. Representative Reyes for the first time.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. I apologize. I'm in 3 different meetings, but I did want to just ask the commissioner a few quick questions, and to just comment that the information that Senator Hartley requested, that I'd also appreciate if I could be copied on that as well, which is the Waterbury Rail Line update, as well as the Mixmaster project work. And I have to say that nobody mentioned it, but the I-84 expansion in the east end of Waterbury absolutely completely changed the lay of the land out there, and how traffic comes in from the east moving through to the west. Kudos to the transportation department and to that project management team. They did a tremendous job. So Commissioner, thank you to you and yours, and we will have that coffee in Waterbury soon.
Yeah, the mayor wants to also join on that one, Representative. So
absolutely,
absolutely, we'll do that. And yes, we've got a lot more of those ideas about where you can invest and maybe only do a few miles, but it has a tremendous impact on how you get the flow to go through. We've got a lot more of those to go and do. Look forward to our conversation. Always.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator.
You're welcome. And just so everybody's clear, all information goes to Susan Keene and then gets out to every member of the Appropriations Committee. Senator Hartley, I thought you asked all your questions.
Duly noted. No, if in the working group, you could come back, Commissioner, with a summary, updated information on the ADA, please, program, and then also a breakdown on the non-ADA. So we can just once again review that as we do annually or biannually. And thank you very, very much, Madam Chair, for your indulgences. Thank you, Commissioner, and everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Commissioner, thank you very much. So to the Appropriations Committee, we will come back at 1 o'clock for the Subcommittee on Corrections and Judicial. Look forward to all seeing you after lunch, and everybody have a nice lunch break. And Commissioner, we'll see you at the working group with all of your people who you stole from us. Thank you.